The following episode of Dad vs. Daughter was made possible by a contribution from Eagle Griffin Games. One of my top games that we featured on Dad vs. Daughter in 2018 was Railways of the World from Eagle Griffin Games. Now they're getting ready to launch a Kickstarter for a brand new expansion, Railways of Portugal. Now this is a prototype map that they had sent to me that they wanted me to play and kind of get an idea of what's different. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you the differences between this and the base game, and then I'm going to sit down with one of my buddies and we're going to show you, kind of walk you through a typical turn, and then we're going to tell you what we think of it. So check it out. First thing I want to mention is that this is a prototype board. You can see the white edges there. That won't be there when we have the production copy. Same with the cards. You'll notice there's some, these are just prototypes. You can see a little white edge at the top there. But what I want to do is I want to point out what the differences are in the Railways of Portugal expansion for Railways of the World. Now, if you're not already familiar with how to play Railways of the World, I'll point you to our video on that, and that should cover everything you need to know. But the first thing I want to point out on the map that's different from the other maps is we have these areas here that are out in the water. Now those are called maritime connections, and you'll see that there are 4 spots. That represents a spot for each player. Now in a 4-player game, you'll be able to fill up all those spots. Now a player can only go to these maritime locations once. So once you connect here, then you can start delivering goods. Now another player could come along and buy a maritime connection, and they can deliver there as well. Now you'll notice that this has 4, so up to 4 players can go there. These two only have 1, so only 1 player can ever claim those. Lisboa is kind of a special city because on a turn, you can only deliver to Lisboa as a player once, either by sea or by land. Now, you'll notice that there are no black cities that are on the board, even though we have black cubes. That is because there is a special urbanize for black cities. Normally, when you urbanize, it's going to cost you $10,000, but when you urbanize a black city, that's only going to cost you $5,000. Now, once the first black city appears on the board, that starts the industrial age, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Another trigger to get a black city on the board if you don't do the urbanize is when you empty the 3rd gray city. Now it doesn't matter which one it is, but it's the 3rd one that you empty. You'll actually put a black city marker on there. You won't seed it with any goods like you would normally when you urbanize. Now the thing with the industrial age is before the industrial age begins, these 2 cities will actually get a goods cube at the beginning of every turn. And you'll notice that they point that out in the turn phases track. Now, once the industrial age begins, then those 2 cities will no longer receive those extra goods. Now, I think this is all final art. Now, you'll notice we have a stack of goal cards. Now, these kind of replace the Baron cards that are in the base game. And you'll see, turn over these, and there are a number of different things that you're going to be able to do, or get points if you do. So gain 2 points for connections to those cities. You get 5 points if you're the player connected to the most cities, no ties allowed, and so forth. And you'll notice that there are a bunch of those. The players are going to get 2 of those to start the game. They'll choose 1. And you can see this is the artwork for Railways of Portugal. And so this is the Railroads Operation deck. You can see these are very similar to the types of cards that we have in the base game and also the expansions. So you'll see you'll have your starting, your service bounties and such. So just kind of show you those real quick. A lot of different service bounties. And you're only going to use a certain number of those. And you'll notice some of these other cards are very familiar with cards that are in the base game. Tunnels, hotels, and that sort of thing. New industry. So those are the differences between the Railways of Portugal expansion and the base game. So now what we're going to do is we're going to kind of peek into a game that my buddy Chris and I were playing and show you kind of how the turn flows if you're not already familiar. We're joining our game in progress. We're about maybe a third, fourth of the way through the game. So you can see that we already have links established. I actually have a lot of debt. I've got 5, 6 bonds. Chris has got 3. We're in the second round of this turn. Chris is up. He is the first player. So go ahead, Chris.
So I'm going to take the Maritime State Support card.
So you can see this allows you to build 1 maritime connection for $2, and then you discard it. Now, the thing with the maritime is you'll notice on the map here, we have these little areas out here that basically in the water that say that they're going to cost $6. A player can only own 1 connection here. There's up to 4, so since it's a 4-player game, you can go ahead and have that all by yourself and have it be a connect link. However, you can only have 1 of these spots in here, and you'll notice between Lisboa and Signs, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, that only 1 player can go there. I've already claimed between Lisboa and Porto for $6 there, so I'm the only one who can deliver on that route. So Chris has taken that maritime spot. Now he can choose once per turn. He can go between Acores, again, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, and Lisboa. So now it is over to me, and we both have level 2 trains, so we can deliver for 2 links. I will actually deliver from, what is that city there? Chavez. I will deliver over to Porto, and that will be for 2. So I'll go up on the income track.
And then I am going to take a bond to be able to build for 4,000. So 4 plus 1. I'm going to build between Lisboa and Leiria.
Now, I do want to point out in an earlier turn, Chris actually urbanized over here for a black city. Now, the black cities are a little different. Normally, an urbanization costs you $10,000. If you urbanize a black city, it only costs you $5. And whenever you have the first black city show up on the map, that is the start of the industrial age. Now, you'll notice at the top here we have 2 cubes. That's to remind us that before the industrial age, these 2 of the maritime cities actually get a cube at the start of each turn. But once we enter that industrial age, we stop that. So you can see they actually have quite a few cubes there. So now we're ready for our final.
It's your final turn.
My final turn. I will go ahead and again I will deliver this 2 link here, and that will be another 2 spots.
Okay. Then we hit the end of the round and do income.
So we're going to do income. Now, you'll remember that income, you minus $1,000 for every bond that you have. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. My income is 9, so I will only actually receive $3,000.
And I have 11 minus 4, so I'm going to take 7.
And Chris is a more experienced player than me, so he's kicking my butt at the moment.
All right, and then we go back up. Since we're in the industrial age, we don't place the cubes out. We do the bid for the next round.
Yep. So I think you got a good idea of what we have here. So we're going to come back later and we'll give you our final thoughts on what we think of Railways of Portugal. This game ended actually closer than what I was expecting. You were at what, 60, or no, 48, and I was at 44. Considering I had 7 bonds, you had 4, so
yep.
That's not too bad. So we'll give Chris the railroad whistle trophy, and then get to what we think. Now keep in mind, this is all prototype. All the pieces that you see here come from the base Railways of the World game, but obviously the map is prototype and the cards are prototype. But I do like the map. It's nice and tight. I think this is a great two-player version. I think with 3 and 4 players, it's just going to get nuts.
Yeah, I would agree. I think 2 is a really good. It played really well at 2. I think you're right. I think with 3 and 4, it might get even tighter, which is not a bad thing. With the way that money works in this game, having a tight game and a tight board is a really good thing.
Yeah, I think these water routes, or forget what they actually call them, the maritime routes. I think these are really interesting. It adds something new to the game that you didn't have before. Having each player can actually get one of those spots, and then having ones that only one player can get to, I think is kind of neat.
Yeah, it definitely creates different routes. The fact that you're able to connect two very disparate locations with a single route adds some flexibility to the map.
And really, that was kind of my strategy. Was I thought this was probably a good enough jump to try to get that early, so I did that, even though it kind of cost me because you were able to get some of the other routes early on and build up some money without having to worry about taking as many bonds as I did.
Yeah.
But no, I think it's really cool. The gold cards that replace the Baron cards are nice. Gives you basically, it's the same type of feel. I don't know that they're really that much different. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, I think the flavor of most of them was very similar to what we've seen before. Longest track, longest consecutive number of trains, most money, those types of things are all very similar, but just a little bit different.
As far as the gameplay, other than those couple of things there, the only thing else that was different was the Lisboa. You could only deliver once to Lisboa on any given turn, so that is kind of limiting, although we didn't really have that come into play here too much, and that kind of goes along with the randomness of pulling the cubes, because we just didn't have much that was going to be going there. We had other red cities that we were able to deliver to. So, final thoughts, Chris?
So I like this. I like this as a variant. Again, with 2 players, it played really well. With the base Railways game, 2 players, the map is too large for that. You have to play the Europe or some other map to do that. The Nippon, I think, plays pretty well at 2. I think this is great at 2.
Yeah, I agree. This is going to be hitting Kickstarter in just a matter of days after this video goes up. So if this looks like it's something that you're interested in backing, I would recommend it.
Absolutely. A thumbs up from me.
All right. So that is Railways of Portugal, and we will catch you guys next time.
Bye.
If you would like to support us, you can visit patreon.com/dadvdaughter.
Like and follow us on Facebook to stay current on our show schedule, sneak peeks at future shows, and to interact with us.